How do you handle your husband's addiction? And more specifically, how do addictions impact his brain and your relationship? That's what we're going to be talking about in today's episode of Flying Free. Maybe you've spent years, decades even, being told that you're the problem. That if you just had more patience, more grace, more submission, things would get better. But today, I want to shed light on the truth. If you are living with a partner who had an addiction issue, you're not the problem. Addiction is the problem. Abuse is the problem, and you happen to be caught up in that vortex. Hopefully, this episode will help you begin the journey of finding your way out. When I first started this journey, I thought that addiction just meant drugs or alcohol. But I have learned through working with hundreds of women that it runs so much deeper. Whether it's your husband losing the mortgage payment at the casino, maxing out credit cards on shopping sprees, or spending hours lost in pornography, the pain cuts just as deep. Addiction, whether it's alcohol, drugs, pornography, gambling, or excessive spending, fundamentally alters how the brain works. Here's what happens. First of all, substances and addictive behaviors flood the brain with dopamine, a neurotransmitter that creates feelings of pleasure. Over time, the brain becomes dependent on these artificial dopamine surges and craves more, leading to compulsive behaviors. And this is why you can't love him enough to fix it. This is why your prayers alone won't stop it. This is why he sometimes seems like two different people. Secondly, the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for impulse control and rational decision-making, becomes compromised. This is why addicts often make irrational choices, or they lie, manipulate, or gaslight their loved ones. Third, addiction dampens the ability to regulate emotions, leading to mood swings, defensiveness, blame shifting, and an overall inability to engage in healthy, reciprocal relationships. And fourth, many addicts refuse to acknowledge their problem. They may twist reality, making you question your own judgment. This is actually a survival mechanism for them, but it is deeply damaging to you. Let me share something personal. A woman in my support group, let's call her Rachel, spent years trying to compete with her husband's porn addiction. She dressed differently, lost weight, tried to be more available. Does that sound familiar? But here's the truth bomb that changed everything for her. His addiction had nothing to do with her attractiveness, and it had everything to do with his broken coping mechanisms. The same thing goes for the wife whose husband can't stop gambling, convinced that if she just managed money better, then he wouldn't need to chase the big win. Or the woman who watches her spouse rack up credit card debt, believing that if she just kept a prettier house, maybe he wouldn't shop compulsively. Or the partner of a drug user, thinking that if she just loved him more, then he'd choose her over the high. If you've been living with an addictive spouse for years, you already know the emotional roller coaster. One moment he may be apologetic and promising to change, and the next, he's blaming you for his struggles. Over time, this dynamic creates deep confusion, self-doubt, and emotional exhaustion. Here's how addiction commonly plays out in relationships. Repeated lies and empty promises erode the trust in the relationship, making it difficult to believe that change is actually possible. Whether it's excessive drinking, drug use, gambling, or reckless spending, addiction often brings financial chaos that can leave you feeling trapped. Addiction prioritizes the substance or the behavior over the relationships, so you may feel invisible, unheard, and deeply alone. They all come with denial and gaslighting. You're overreacting. It's really not that bad. Everybody does this. This is just the way I am. You're just being controlling. These words, they are the addiction talking, trying to protect itself. All of these addictions mess with the brain's executive function, that command center that handles decision making and empathy and emotional regulation. And this is why your husband might seem caring one minute and cruel or disconnected the next. Many Christian women struggle with whether it's unbiblical to leave an addicted spouse. But let's be clear, God does not call you to endure neglect, abuse, betrayal, and lies under the guise of a marriage. For many women, staying feels like the only option. Maybe you've been told that divorce is a sin or that a good Christian wife never gives up. But staying in a toxic, addiction-fueled marriage is not saving your husband anyway, and it is destroying you. So you might be sitting there thinking, but my husband's addiction isn't as bad as alcoholism or drugs. And I just want to stop you right there, because addiction is addiction. The substance or the behavior might be different, but the impact on your marriage and your brain and your heart, that's just as real. Here are some signs that you're dealing with addiction. Money keeps disappearing without explanation. Hours are unaccounted for. Emotional volatility. Promises are made and then broken repeatedly. Your reality is constantly questioned. You are isolated from friends and family. You have a gut feeling that something's wrong, even though you can't prove it. Here's what I want you to consider. You can't fix him. You can love, support, and pray for someone, but you cannot change them. Change only happens when they choose it, and it has to come from internal, inside of themselves. It can't come because you are pressuring them or threatening them. Boundaries are biblical. Proverbs 22:3 says, "The prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty." God calls us to wisdom and self-protection. Divorce or legal separation can be a path to safety. If your husband's addictions create a toxic, harmful, or dangerous environment, you have permission to protect yourself legally, emotionally, and spiritually. And finally, letting go isn't failure. It's actually an act of courage. It's stepping into the truth of your reality and choosing health over chaos. So, where do you go from here? First of all, educate yourself. Learn about addiction and its impact so that you can stop internalizing the blame. Secondly, seek support. Connect with a counselor or therapist or a support group like the Flying Free Kaleidoscope or a trusted friend who understands abuse and addiction dynamics. Third, make a safety plan. If your husband's addiction makes your home unsafe, consider your options for separation or for legal protection, a legal separation or a legal divorce. And fourth, trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. You don't need any more proof than that to justify leaving a destructive situation. Beautiful butterfly, you are not alone. You are not crazy. And you are not being unfaithful to God by prioritizing your own well-being. Addiction wreaks havoc in the lives of those it touches, but you have the power to step out of its grip. There is hope, there is healing, and there is life beyond addiction-fueled chaos, one where you can breathe freely again. If this episode resonated with you, I invite you to connect with me in my private community, where women just like you are walking this journey of healing. You don't have to do it alone. Go to joinflyingfree.com for more information. One of our beautiful butterflies in the program shared this in our celebration space. And by the way, I never share anything that might give a person away. I will only share things that are very high level and that could have been shared by anyone in our program. She wrote this: "I may have turned a corner. This Sunday, while I was worshiping and praying, rather than asking God to heal my husband so he isn't so miserable all the time, instead, I said, Lord, help me get free from the constant pain. Change my thoughts into what you want me to hear and know. Set me free from this by helping me know how to get free. Since this isn't what you want for me, help me get away from it. I asked God to help me with courage and strength to see it for what it is and help me get out from under it. Usually, I am begging God to heal my husband and lift him up so he can be happy and peaceful and free from his bondage. But now I am acknowledging that I am the one that needs help to protect myself. Ladies, this is a huge internal shift that's going to help this woman as she rebuilds her future. Turning our focus from someone that we cannot control anyway toward the one person God's given us to control, which is ourselves, that is the most powerful, game-changing thing we can do. And I'm always excited when I see women discovering these truths. So until next time, beautiful butterfly, take care of your heart, protect your peace, and remember that you are deeply loved and worthy of a life free from addiction's grip. If you found today's episode helpful, please share it with a friend who might need to hear this message. And if you're looking for support, you can also visit flyingfreenow.com, where I offer free resources, education, and a safe space for Christian women living in destructive marriages. Take care, and I'll see you in the next episode.